Quick note before we start. This video is for education and entertainment, and it's built on a genuinely alarming stack of research. Alright, let's dig. Around 65,000 years ago, human beings did something that should have been impossible. They crossed open ocean and reached Australia, tens of thousands of years before anyone invented writing or agriculture or the wheel. No maps, no metal, no sails. Just human beings, deliberately setting out across water they could not see the end of, toward a land they could not have known for certain was there. It is one of the most staggering achievements in the entire human story, and almost nobody talks about it. During the Ice Age, sea levels were far lower. Southeast Asia's islands were joined into a larger landmass. Australia, Tasmania, and New Guinea were fused into a single giant continent called Sahul, but even at the lowest sea levels, there was always open water in the way, deep ocean channels that never dried up. This boundary is so significant that biologists named it the Wallace Line. On one side, Asian animals. On the other, a completely different Australian world. The two faunas stayed separate for millions of years because of those deep water channels. Most animals could never cross. Tigers and elephants were stopped cold by that water. Human beings looked at it and figured out how to get across. This wasn't a trivial paddle across a calm strait. It required crossing stretches where you would lose sight of land entirely. You are on the coast. You know or suspect that there might be more land out there. Maybe you can see distant smoke or clouds that gather over unseen land, but you cannot see the destination. And you decide, deliberately, with your families, to build a watercraft and launch out. That is not desperation. That is not an accident. That is one of the boldest deliberate acts in human history. This could not have been a fluke. You don't accidentally populate a continent. A viable breeding population required a substantial group, dozens at minimum, making the crossing. That means planning, intent, watercraft capable of carrying groups across open sea. 65,000 years ago, people were doing organised, intentional, open water seafaring. Let that reset your image of what a Stone Age person was. The crossing to Australia obliterates the image of primitive, barely scraping by ancestors. These people needed advanced knowledge of the sea. Currents, winds, seasons, how to read the ocean. They needed technology to build seaworthy craft, bamboo or wood, tools and techniques passed down and refined. They needed social organisation to coordinate a group migration, to provision it, to decide together to go, and they needed the imagination to conceive of unseen land beyond the horizon, and the nerve to sail toward it. The people who reached Australia were master mariners, navigators and explorers 65,000 years ago. We have almost no idea what their boats looked like, and there's a heartbreaking reason. Everything rots. Watercraft from 65,000 years ago were made of organic materials, and every one of those things rots. Nothing survives. We're left inferring the vessels from the only thing we can be sure of. People undeniably ended up on the far shore. Researchers have tried building rafts from bamboo to test what's possible, and the experiments suggest it could work. We know the voyage happened. We'll likely never see the ship. The missing boat forces us to respect the knowledge behind it. Building an ocean-worthy raft isn't obvious. Some researchers think the earliest voyagers may have used clues like distant smoke, cloud formations over unseen land, or migrating birds. That's navigation, a body of hard-won marine knowledge held and passed down 65,000 years ago. It didn't leave a boat behind, but it left a whole continent full of descendants, which is a bigger monument than any boat. At Madjedbebe in northern Australia, archaeologists excavated thousands of artefacts dated to around 65,000 years ago. Stone tools, ground-edge axes, ground ochre, the toolkit and symbolic behaviour of thoroughly modern humans. People were there deep in the Ice Age, having crossed the sea, already making sophisticated tools and using pigment. Why did they go at all? Maybe pressure. Growing populations pushing people outward. Maybe curiosity. Maybe following the food, chasing coastal resources further and further until the next island beckoned. The underlying trait is the willingness to leave the known behind and move toward the unknown. Australia was one of the first and most dramatic expressions of that trait, written in open water. Those first mariners didn't just land on a beach and stop. Their descendants spread across the entire continent, through rainforest, across deserts, into mountains, all the way to the cold south, and became the ancestors of the Aboriginal Australian peoples, whose cultures represent one of the longest continuous human histories on Earth. tens of thousands of years of continuous culture, stories, knowledge, and connection to the land, all beginning with a group who crossed impossible water. The oral traditions of some Aboriginal peoples preserve accounts of ancestral arrivals and of a time when coastlines were different, memory reaching back across a scale of time that is almost impossible to comprehend. We rightly celebrate the great sea voyages of recorded history, the Polynesians navigating the Pacific, the European age of exploration. But the crossing to Australia happened 65,000 years ago. It predates all of it by tens of thousands of years. It predates cave paintings in Europe. It predates agriculture by more than 50,000 years. It is one of the very first times we have solid evidence of humans conquering the open ocean. The first great voyage of discovery wasn't in the age of sail. It was in the depths of the Ice Age. So the next time someone describes our Ice Age ancestors as simple, primitive cave people, picture this instead. A group of human beings 65,000 years ago standing on a shore at the edge of their known world. Behind them, everything they've ever known. In front of them, open ocean with no visible far side, and they build their craft, and they gather their families, and they push off from the land, and they sail out into the unknown toward a continent they can't see, trusting their knowledge and their nerve. And they make it. They found a new world. That happened. Real people did that before history began. If that doesn't rearrange your sense of what our ancestors were capable of, I don't know what will. All the sources are in the description. Madjedbebe, the geography of Sahul, the modelling of how many people the crossing required. Go read them, because the more you look, the more incredible it gets. And remember, those first mariners, staring down an impossible ocean and going anyway, are your family. That nerve, that curiosity, that refusal to stay put, you carry it. So stay curious, look toward your own horizons, and keep digging. See you in the next one. Bye. They crossed open ocean, deep, wide, dangerous sea, out of sight of land. It is one of the most staggering achievements in the entire human story. Even at the lowest sea levels, deep ocean channels separated the Asian world from the Australian one. These channels never dried up. Our ancestors crossed a barrier that held back nearly every other large animal for millions of years. You decide to build a watercraft, load it with people, and launch into open ocean toward a place you cannot confirm exists. Some researchers model that a successful founding population required dozens of people crossing. They needed the technology to build seaworthy craft, bamboo or wood, using tools and techniques passed down. Every one of those capabilities is a mark of a fully modern human mind. We know the voyage happened. We'll likely never see the ship. Some think voyagers used clues, distant smoke, cloud formations over land, birds flying towards something over the horizon. That's navigation. Hard-won marine knowledge, held and passed down. It left a whole continent full of descendants, a bigger monument than any boat. The Madjedbebe rock shelter dates to around 65,000 years ago. Ground-edge axes, processed ochre. Why did they go? Pressure, curiosity, following food, probably some mix of all. The willingness to leave the known behind and move toward the unknown. Australia was one of the first expressions of that trait. Their descendants spread across the entire continent and became the ancestors of the Aboriginal Australian peoples, one of the longest continuous human histories anywhere on Earth. Oral traditions preserve accounts of ancestral arrivals and times when coastlines were different, memory across deep time. The first great voyage of discovery happened in the depths of the Ice Age, and we barely tell the story. A group of human beings standing on a shore at the edge of their known world. They push off from the land and sail out into the unknown, trusting their knowledge and their nerve. And they make it. Real people did that before history began. Those first mariners are your family. That nerve, that curiosity, you carry it. Every one of their qualities is a mark of a fully modern human mind. 65,000 years ago, where tigers and elephants were stopped cold, human beings figured out how to get across. They found a new world. Look toward your own horizons and keep digging. See you in the next one. Bye.